Well, it's my absolute pleasure to be here with Patricia Pozo-Rosich, and everyone in the audience should know who she is as Secretary of the Headache Society, as well as being a very eminent neurologist, clinician and researcher. So Patricia, we're here today to summarise essentially the interesting things you've been talking to us about precision medicine. So what is precision medicine, to sound really naive?
Well, precision medicine actually, it was an initiative. I mean, the word doesn't come from that, but it was an initiative that Barack Obama had some years ago, in a way, when he realized that we could measure temperature. We knew what blood type we all had, that there were quantifiable ways of actually differentiating us, even if from the outside we all look alike. So at the end, it's trying to match your biology to the treatment that you're going to get, or even to the diagnosis that we are going to give you as a patient. It's doing personalized medicine, but in a more, I would say, biologically driven way. And on top of it, nowadays, to do proper precision medicine, you actually have to include the patient in the equation, which means actually that most of the information that you're going to get from that person comes from a person. And that person has to participate in the whole process of also the ethics that are around it, but also the project that, you know, and the reasons of why you're doing it. So it's all more open and transparent, I would say, and yeah, more collaborative, you could say. And probably that's partly too because of the challenges that you know, this concept actually means for all of us. It's not easy. I mean, the task is daunting, so you actually have to really make sure that all of the stakeholders involved in achieving this goal are involved already at the beginning of the process.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're talking about patient-related outcomes being more important in what we're currently doing. Yeah. So why do you think that's so important in defining what we do with our patients?
Well, mainly because actually, because it's for them in a way, no? But mainly because it's a way actually of understanding the whole process. Yeah, how could I answer this? I think it's the best way to try and understand what is really going on without us prejudging what we think is going on. And that sometimes is very important in regards to how we measure, and in our case it's really easy to say, but other things, treatment outcomes. You know, treatment outcomes, actually there was this study done in Portugal by Raquel, you know, our friend, who actually showed that us physicians value worse the outcome of treatment than actually what patients do. Because sometimes, you know, in clinical trials, there's a 50% response, and that's what you consider a good outcome, so a good responder. Yeah. However, you and I know in real life, if you respond a 35–40%, and the severity or the intensity of pain goes, you know, lowers down, decreases by a percentage too, the mixture of you know, reducing a bit the efficacy and maybe a lot the severity already has a lot of impact. So in regards to treatment, that's partly, you know, the reasons. Another example that I can give you is diagnosis. So we might all think, why do you need a biomarker to diagnose migraine? Because, oh, super easy, you know, it's 1, 2, 3.
3 questions.
Unilateral frequency, it's 4 clinical questions, and I know if that person already has a migraine. But for them, for example, it's important because it grounds the disease. It actually gives them some visibility. It doesn't just, you know, stay there as a headache, which is kind of, yeah, a ghost, you could say. So with that, I think that sometimes, you know, also the prioritization, so to prioritize sometimes research objectives, you have to ask what is important to them in order to start, you know, in one of the places and all of the questions that we have. So involving also patients is important to prioritize research, actually, and money.
Absolutely. I think it really helps to drive the research to hear what's happening for the patients. With the more disease-specific, highly effective treatments, have you learnt in reverse any of the factors that seem most important to your patients that are driving your research? Do you find the most bothersome symptoms are actually more bothersome than we thought they were? Do you think quality of life or function should be ranked higher, or even new things added like fatigue, brain fog, those sorts of things? Or is that too lofty?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. This new kind of therapeutic era, which has shown quick, especially quick, because, you know, and I know that maybe with Botox, patients were also improving. but maybe it was not as quick, not as direct, you could say. And here, when you see clinically a good or an excellent responder, it's really very quick and very, meaningful kind of, and you realize that so many things have actually improved, and they're so happy. So suddenly, it's amazing to see that, well, it takes also all of the prejudices away, and humbles you in the sense that you see how much part of all of these bothersome symptoms, you could say, are related to the whole disease, such as, for example, depression, or being kind of these very crazy patients. They're never going to improve, and they surprise you. Actually, I have many of my refractory, you could say, or I wouldn't say hard to treat, they just don't respond to other treatments, who have responded with this new anti-CGRP, you could say, therapies. And with that, their life and their mood has changed. So it's, what can I say in that regard? Yes, I've seen many patients that actually don't come back with excellent improvements in diaries, but they're happier. They're happier, and I think that happiness has more to do with bothersome symptoms and being able to function than actually, you'd say moderate pain. I mean, I would agree that very severe pain, doesn't allow you to do anything. But you have moderate, mild, even if it's a daily type of pain. But all of the other things are much better. Photophobia, depression, anxiety. So all of these things, I do think they matter.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've talked also about the fluctuations, perhaps, after decades of our patients telling us there's always a reason, always a trigger. Do you think when you see someone not doing as well, it's because there's some trigger we haven't attended to, or do you think that there's fluctuations? And if so, how long do we give them before we decide that this truly isn't working anymore?
That's a very intelligent question, and goes back to one of the things that I truly believe in, but it's still a belief, it's still a hypothesis. We're working on trying to answer scientifically what you're asking me, but I'll tell you, also I'll share with you what what my hypothesis could be. So I believe that, first of all, there's a natural rhythm to life, you could say. And that includes kind of our brain waves and our brain functioning and our body functioning. I always actually say that migraine is a corporal disease. It's a bodily disease. There's many more things than just, you could say, even the brain. But that's mainly because the nervous system is all over the place. But well, going back to natural rhythms, there's a rhythm to when patients have attacks. There might be other things sometimes triggering them, but it's not kind of, the strong attack, those attacks that come in and out, and you and I kind of know what, I'm talking about, have a rhythm. And this rhythm, you can kind of program it in a way. What I'm trying to say is that the more you have, the more you will have, in a way.
Yeah.
So you increase rhythm and speed by actually not treating appropriately, in my opinion. And then it gets to a point that's uncontrollable. So at the beginning, it's a natural rhythm that the brain needs actually probably to stop. Attacks actually stop you for a while. But then this rhythm slightly comes on and increases, and it's actually your natural biology that keeps on increasing it if you artificially or consciously don't want to stop it. Because it just learns it. The brain is a fast learner. So, this is working, this is fun. And you actually change epigenetics. So part of what we think is all about behavior, and what we do is about actually consciously wanting to change your behavior or acting in a certain way, and that actually changes your biology. And I think that's very powerful.
So if being worse makes you worse, I'm a glass half full sort of gal, does that mean for our partial responders we should be aiming better? And so what would you do with a partial responder to try and individually help them be better?
Yeah, I always also share that with students and residents. You have to thrive for excellence. You just cannot just say, okay, good, he's a partial responder. Oh, I'm so happy he's a partial responder, Tick, exactly. I'm going to bed very relaxed right now. So you have to try and fight for those excellent responses in any way. So my tricks, I would say, and that's what I probably perhaps do. I always review everything that is going on in their lives. So I'm just understanding if there's anything that they might, to help them improve. I'm actually their life coach, you could say, in some way, in some ways. And then I really also, I'm keen, you could say, on adjuvant therapy. So therapies that actually complement well, I believe, what the problem is about. And I use a lot of things that help the patient sleep better, not benzodiazepines or anything that is addictive, but drugs or treatments that actually help you relax, as and kind of also handle the whole disease better. But there's many sentences I've realized with time that have helped my patients. One of them is, don't think your migraine attacks are your enemy. Migraine as a disease is not your enemy. You just have to understand, what it wants to tell you in a way and adapt to it in a better way. But
that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, and that would make it less
because
scary
they're
for them.
angry.
Yeah, angry and fearful.
Oh, fearful. Oh, yeah, that's for sure.
The fear sort of melts away if you're doing the right job. So on to omics then. So another naive question, what is omics?
Omics is a word that actually means the study of biology in all of its expressions, and that's why it has sometimes a prefix to the word, which can be genomics, proteomics, metabolomics. So it's actually trying to understand the whole, using usually molecular biology. And so there's, as I was just mentioning, there's many types of omics that we can study from a person or a group of people. Such as, I would start with your genes, so DNA, and that's genomics. And then you can go on to study epigenomics, so the epigenetics, which is all of these keys that we have through behavior and what we eat and diet and so on, and the environment that actually regulate, so up-regulate, down-regulate, so silence the expression of genes. Then we go into proteins, which are the final expression through mRNA and the whole key chain of how the DNA actually transforms into action. And proteins can be studied too, and that's proteinomics. And then we have metabolomics. So metabolites are the key degradation of the action that you have done. So you can dissect, the process of what is going on for something in our bodies to happen in different parts, and they're interrelated. So many times, for example, an approach could be, okay, so through genomics, I'm going to try and understand what is going on after. But there's also the other approach. I'm going to study metabolites, and from metabolites, as they are linked to a certain activation or not of a protein, I can also kind of understand the way back. The perfect way, in my opinion, is doing a bit of everything and understanding the whole, because even if there's these networks that actually nowadays, as I was saying, explain if you see certain proteins or metabolites, what is the network, or what does the network look like, it still is partial. You don't have the whole information of really what's going on. And for that you need money, you need invested clinicians and researchers, and you need very collaborative patients for the whole thing to happen.
Absolutely. And so are any of these things yet directing or informing your clinical practice, or is it that they're still in the land of future research?
No, everything that the quick answer would be everything that I learn impacts my clinical practice, everything. So I'll give you an example also with this, I've mentioned this several times, sometimes in talks and so on. This science paper that was published in 2018, just if anyone wants to check it up. And this consortium was built, including all of the consortia that had studied mental and brain disorders. So all of the psychiatric disorders were in there, all of the neurological ones that previously had data from GWAS studies. GWAS is the study of the whole genome, so you study 1 million polymorphisms and see, what differences are found in your genes between patients and controls. So all of this, through very complex statistical analysis, went into kind of this mix. And what we found was that actually migraine, well, first of all, that psychiatric diseases are genetically almost the same.
Yes.
So it's when we think that maybe depression or compulsive obsessive disorder or ADHD in English is the opposite. All of these look different to us, physically. They're actually genetically very, very similar. So the final expression of those genes, imagine how different it can look like, So that's interesting. So in a way, psychiatrists are studying, you could say, the same disease.
Yeah.
Neurology, though, has a whole wide, so it's all genetically very different. So stroke is different from Parkinson's, which is different from MS, which is different. Genetically, they're very different. They practically don't share anything at a genetic level. However, migraine is kind of the exception. And we have our own genes. I mean, the disease has its own genes, but it also shares some with depression and the psychiatric, you could say, field, and also actually anxiety, depression, a bit of obsessive compulsive disorder, and a bit of ADHD. So then when I read about this, you can read it and just, okay, yeah. It helped me, although I've never been judgmental at all, I think, but it helped me even understand better, my patients. And when they suddenly say, I have like cyclic thoughts, or I don't know how you call this in English, circular looping thoughts, or sometimes it's hard for me to concentrate. I'm wondering how much of that is really the environment, and we think that the hypersensitivity or hyperexcitability of this cortex, which probably there is something there, is the cause. And maybe it's just in your genes. You just cannot really. So it's harder for you to concentrate, and that requires more energy in the process. So you actually are tired, or more tired than other people, and that can be true also, So it gives you such, I think, powerful insight on all of the differences that, we just cannot see, just by looking at someone, which is very interesting and powerful. And I think it makes you, as I said, more understanding and humble. So every piece of information. Yeah. Because
we need to be better at these comorbid things, because they're part of it, aren't they?
Yeah.
So my last question to you is a bit of a doozy. In the what should be a race to find a clinically useful biomarker, do you think that will happen in our lifetime? Mm-hmm. And also, I'm going to tell you to lay this down so I can remind you of it in 20 years when we're watching this video back. Where do you think it will come from? Will it be in the blood, CSF? Will it be functional, structural? Will it be neurophysiological, like we've heard yesterday? What do you think is going to happen in the future?
Well, thank you for the question, and thank you. Yeah, you're right. We should watch this some years from now and see what has really happened. I do believe we'll have a biomarker. Yes, I think biomarkers are around the corner.
Great.
In a way. Around the corner in science could mean 5 to 10 years, but that's a short span of time. So, I am quite convinced that we will be able at least to measure properly and quantitatively migraine, especially migraine. Of course, there's other diseases that also will have maybe some other types of biomarkers, but I'm talking now about migraine. And which one will be the first, you could say, because we might have several. Probably molecular biomarkers.
Yeah.
We'll just need to understand, because when we think of a biomarker, we want a solution for everything, all of our kind of questions, So we'll have to perhaps think if CGRP is really meaningful or not, for example, as a biomarker, and for what specifically. So we'll have biomarkers for different things that we want to predict or understand of that disease or diagnose. And then I have to say that our group is working, let's see in 20 years what happens. We are working a lot on the omics too.
Yeah.
And I think that we will find things there too. The thing with what we are finding, and it's all kind of like embargoed, you could say, I can't speak about it now, is that I'm not 100% sure if it will have a therapeutic kind of correlate. Right. But it will certainly help or be very, very powerful to diagnose and to differentiate types of migraine.
That would help research so neatly,
yes,
wouldn't it?
And diagnose, you could say, and diagnose in a biologically driven way, you could say. And then that might then, be linked to different therapies for patients.
Great. Well, I think that finishes it well. It's an exciting time for clinicians and researchers alike. So really, thank you so much for your time and all that you're doing in the world of headache. And I hope the audience found this really interesting to kickstart their own careers in clinical and research.
Yeah, I hope we have more people. We need that. We need all of the interested people. We need an army, that's right. And thank you for interviewing me and the interest. Thank you, Bronwyn.
Thanks.